Hello and welcome to episode 65 of the Late Challenge podcast with me, Paul Cope, and him, Gareth Roberts. After what's been an awful week in the world of LFC since we last saw you, with Liverpool somehow managing to only pick up 1 point from away games at Everton and West Ham and crashing out of the title race in the process. We're going to look back at what went wrong in both games. We're going to chat about our misfiring forwards again, because things might have changed since the last time we spoke about it. We're going to talk about that spat between Salah and Klopp and whether at this point we'd be better off just letting the players ref the games themselves like we all used to do in school. And after we've had a good therapy session about all that, we're going to reflect and we're going to gather ourselves before the last 3 games of the season, and we're going to take a zoomed out view of what's been going on and how, in the grander scheme of things, it's not that bad. But before we get to all that, I thought, because it's been a bit miserable lately, let's be honest, and I thought let's just start off with some random nonsense that might give you a bit of a laugh. Because I was going to mention this last week and we got tied up in other things. I had a little funny incident with you, with Robbo, getting out of our cars last week. Do you want to tell the story, or do you want me to?
No, you go for it, mate. I'd forgot about it, but then I saw it on your agenda and I thought, you bastard.
So I'd pulled up in the car park outside the studios, and we wanted to give a shout out to the lads. Actually, we film this in Material Studios in Liverpool. Dave and Jim, great lads, have been fantastic for us since we moved across here a few months ago. So we want to give them a shout. If you want to do any filming, any podcasting, if you're a band and want to do any recording, get down here. They'll look after you.
They both like shoegaze as well, so
yeah, you're into all that.
Can only endorse them massively for that alone.
It's a Bosch studio, right, with like proper like guitars and everything set up. There's been this little thing between me and Robbo. This is a different story to what I'm going to tell you about who's going to be the first to pick up a guitar and have a little go. And I saw you doing having a little
House of the Rising Sun
last week. Is that what you were playing?
Yeah,
I couldn't hear you through the thing. Good work. But anyway, so I got here a bit earlier last week, and I was sitting outside in my car, just reading through the agenda that Robbo had sent across because it was his week. And I'm reading through, and then Robbo pulls up next to me in his car, and I hear him shout. What did you shout?
All right, lid.
All right, lid at the top.
I came in like the tunes blaring, and I was singing along to whatever it was. And then I shouted, all right, lid, and you were sat in your car. And in my head, I thought, he can't hear me.
Yeah. So I hear him say, all right, lid. So without turning around, I just put my thumb up to say, all right. And then we both get out of our cars, and he was like, could you hear me then? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. You're only sitting 5 feet away from me in a car. Why? What did you think? And you genuinely thought your car was soundproof, didn't you?
Kind of, yeah.
So Robbo's been bouncing
like
through life in a tin can with glass, thinking that no one can hear him.
Like proper belting songs out in traffic jams and all that.
What car have you got? I said to him, what do you think, it's fucking bulletproof as well? What?
It's just a Vauxhall Mocha, like.
Vauxhall Mocha, soundproof, fucking hell.
I know, just one of them things that I've never really thought about, and somehow made the assumption no one can hear me. So I need to watch that, don't I? Because not only am I belting out songs full blast, but I'm like throwing insults at people who were there, cutting me up and things like that. So yeah, I'll have to watch that then. Well, you learn something new every day and all that. Every day's a school day.
It's a good way to learn, isn't it? It's a good way to find out instead of someone coming over and swatting your car. If anyone just thought I'd share that with you, brighten your day. Until we get back to the footy, which is less cheery, isn't it?
Yeah.
Considering last time we were here, we'd just beaten Fulham, and I think we were all getting our typical Liverpool supporter optimism back and thinking we're going to do it after all. And then we went to Goodison, and that happened. And then we went to the London Stadium, and that happened. So we'll just have a chat about it all, basically, without probably going into too much of the statistical detail that everyone else has done to death by now. What's your thoughts on it? I was just looking at TNT tweeted something about our April results. In April, we had 8 games. We won 3, lost 3, and drew 2. So we beat Sheffield United. We beat Atalanta away 1-0, which was obviously pretty much a dead rubber anyway. And then we beat Fulham away. We drew with West Ham at the weekend, obviously. We drew with Man United away, which was another shit result. And then we got beat 3-0 by Atalanta. We got beat at home by Crystal Palace, and we got beat, obviously, in the derby. What do you think's happened? Generally, I think it's after the derby as well. I was thinking about how do I feel, and I was just really sad. I just felt really sad that this is how it's going to end.
Yeah, a bit hollow, a bit sad. It's all a bit of a shame, really, isn't it? We've got our hopes up. We've thought it's going to be the dream ending to the Klopp managerial reign. We thought we might see a League One in person where we get to celebrate it with them, where they'd be lifting a trophy in the last game of the season at Anfield. All of those dream scenarios all seem to be coming together in one big lovely jigsaw, and then slowly but surely we've been losing the pieces. I think we've been losing them since, for me, the one that stood out when I'm thinking about it, I'm starting to think, where did it all start to unravel? I think it's United in the FA Cup.
In the Cup, yeah.
I just think, that was so such a case of shooting ourselves in the foot, really. I think mentally they maybe didn't really recover from it, and it's been a bit of a downhill spiral since.
Well, don't you think it's interesting? I've never known him do this before. The number of times he's referenced that game since.
I know.
It feels like it's properly in the Reds, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it was such a... we're so much better than them, aren't we, and all the rest of it. And, it was just dozy, really. It was just sort of, how have we come away? I went to that game and I'd come away from it going, how have we exited the FA Cup in that fashion to them there? And then, we sort of go there and almost repeat the same performance and end up drawing with them. And then, the derby, to bring it back to more modern times. And, I went to that and I can't say, well, I don't know. On the day when I was walking up, I did think we're still better than them. We're still a lot better than them. We've still got talent in this side. Whatever the circumstances, Cody Gakpo's partner giving birth, Jota being injured, whatever it might be, I still thought we've got enough to win. And even on the night, we don't play well. We sort of lose the battle to them. We play into their hands in how we defended and giving away cheap free kicks and all the rest of it. But still, we did enough to win. Still, we had chances that are absolutely gilt-edged that we should be putting away. And it's just turned into this familiar pattern now, hasn't it? Of, daft goals at one end and not scoring goals at the other end. And it's just got bigger and bigger. Clearly, there's a collective mental block. I think there's been a thing where they just sort of almost look at times like they're trying harder and harder, and by trying harder and harder, that's actually making it worse. There's that book, isn't there? Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow. Don't know if you ever read that one.
Yeah.
And that thing of when things are just coming automatically and they're just happening, and you're not overthinking it, you're just doing it. Like when you drive a car, you're not really thinking about driving the car because you've driven the car that many times. You just drive the car. And I think, when you see players at the best, when they're scoring goals, etc., they're not thinking about it, they're just doing it. It's just coming naturally to them. They practiced it that many times. They've been in that scenario that many times. They just pick it up. Their mind knows it's in the back of the net. You sometimes see it, don't you? I think in post-match interviews and stuff like that, where they've got them immediately as they're coming off the pitch, and they don't really know. You know what I mean? They'll say, talk us through that goal, and they don't really know, do they?
Yeah.
They sort of say things like, oh, we'll have to see it back.
Yeah.
And then even when they see it back, when they roll the big telly out sometimes, even that's a bit cringy sometimes, because you can tell it's unthinking football, you know what I mean? It's automatic.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened to us is because of the pressure of the situation, because it started to unravel, I think they are overthinking. And, you've seen it so many times on the edge of areas of various opposition. Too many passes, the wrong pass, the wrong choice. And we saw that in the West Ham game. We saw that in the Goodison game. And look, it's gone now, hasn't it? We're not going to win the league. We're not going to win anything else. The season is Liverpool probably finishing third and finishing with the League Cup. What I don't think we should do, and I can't tell people what to do, but I don't think we should do, is just get on this big band of revisionism about the manager and, about the decision he made and about the fact that this has done this and this has done that. Because no one was saying that the other week. Do you know what I mean? And like there's been this huge shift with loads of hindsight available going, oh, well, it's because of this, and oh, well, it's because of that. I said all along, and when I look back on what I was saying myself, I you know, like similar to what I'm just saying, like why was I saying it? Perhaps there was a part of me that knew. Do you know what I mean? So like I think there was like the dreamy part of me, like that wanted that dream ending, that golden ending, that, you know, big finish, lift everything, go to Dublin, all of those things. But when I kept saying, and it was weeks ago, it might have even been months ago, where I was saying, I'm already proud of them because they've already punched above, they've already done more than I expected they would. Well, I won't go back on that. I still say that because I don't, you know, a lot of what they were doing wasn't sustainable, was it? You've probably got the stats in the agenda about how many times they've gone behind and things like that across the course of the season. I think it might be 16 times in the Premier League they've conceded the first goal. Is it 23 or something? All
like
comps.
Yeah.
Of course, that is not sustainable. And yet, we're saying it's not sustainable, yet they sustained it. They kept coming back, they kept winning, they won from that position more than anyone else. So there's your heart, there's your character, and there's your fight of the group of players. And then there's all the other stuff that comes into the bargain. So it's been a terrible season for injuries. We've had some terrible bad luck. We've had some awful decisions going against us. And there's another example to talk about in this show, which genuinely has baffled me, perhaps more than any of the others. We'll talk about that soon. Like, but yeah, I'm sad, but I'm not angry. I still don't see anyone to be really angry with. I'm a little bit pissed off with Mo, I've got to say. And again, we'll talk about that. But you know, I haven't got many bombs to throw at the manager, to be honest with you. You know, I'll always have a bit doughy-eyed, bit romantic or whatever, but I'll always have a place in my heart for it. I'd have a place for any man who's come to this club and won us that 19th title, because 30 years without one was a huge amount of pressure on anyone's shoulders coming in. And he had the bottle, knowing that, to come in, take the job and say, I'll win you it. Because that's what he basically said in his first ever press conference. He said in 4 years' time, we'll essentially be talking about me winning that title. Yeah. Along those lines, I might be bastardising his quote a little bit. But, you know, he's right. Like, he's come in, had the balls from day one to say, yeah, we'll win the league. Yeah. And that's why we sing the song. Jürgen said to me, you know, we'll win the Premier League, you know. He said so. Yeah, he did. And yeah, he did. So, you know, he's won us the league. He's made us world champions, European champions. He's won every trophy. First manager of Liverpool to win trophies in 6 different competitions or whatever it is. Longest serving manager since Bob Paisley. And no one wanted him sacked, did they? No one wanted him to go. He's decided to go because he's had enough, because he needs to recharge, because he wants to live his life, because he wants to spend time with his grandchildren, whatever it might be. Good luck to him. And if I ever see him out and about, but that's probably unlikely, but if I did, I'd buy him a pint and shake his hand. I'd say thanks very much, Jürgen. And yeah, it is sad. It is sad that, you know, we've just got to go through, you know, Tottenham, Villa and Wolves on the farewell tour. But let's make the most of them. Let's win them 3. Let's get as many points as we can on the board. And we're in the Champions League, aren't we? You know, it started with them getting us back in the Champions League. It ends with us being back in the Champions League. That's where we should be. That's where we needed to be. And look, it's not winning the thing. It's not lifting the trophy, but it's not that bad.
Yeah, and I was going to end with all this, but let's do it while we're on it, and then we'll come back to the games and the sadder points. But I think this is the bit. And look, I know. I get we've still got 3 games left to play, and there's time to do this all properly at the end of the season. But I do think it's worth, just for anyone who is losing their heads. I think I don't watch that many people on Twitter anymore, because, you know, that I've thought for a long time it's the worst place to get your view of what humans think about anything.
It's a cesspit, isn't
it? Most of the people I know have got the same attitude that you've just said, which is, put it all in context. Like, I was just looking back to make a point of this. We finished 22 points behind City last season. We all know the wheels fell off and everything went to shit. And yes, they sent me, you know, snippets of the book about the end of his time at Dortmund, which were doing the rounds last year when the wheels fell off, and it is all the same sort of stuff. And for as much as we love him, the reality is, and we've seen this throughout his career, the way Jurgen Klopp wants to play footy fucking destroys footballers over a period of time. They get knackered. And especially the way we've played footy this season. As does he, yeah. And there's a good point I do want to come back onto about him. But last season, after all the wheels falling off, and I remember last season us all quoting the Dortmund CEO who, when he said, me and Jurgen had a sit down and said, look, you've either got to let all the players go and change all the players, or I go and you change me. And the CEO a year later was like, I made the wrong decision. I should have kept Jurgen and changed all the players. And we were half joking going into this season that that's obviously the decision FSG had made. We'll keep Jurgen and change the players. But when you stop and look at it, we finished 22 points behind City and 17 behind Arsenal. Then we rebuilt, in inverted commas, our side by spending 150 million quid on 4 midfielders, basically. Arsenal, meanwhile, after finishing 17 points ahead of us and having their first league title crack, spent about 200 million on 3 players. Declan Rice, who's been brilliant. Kai Havertz, who we all said would be a flop and has come good.
Yeah.
And Jurrien Timber, who hasn't played all season. City, having won the treble, and this it's really important we keep putting this in context, right? Because I think everyone forgets. I think everyone's gone a bit like snowblind to it. Having finished 22 points behind a City team that won the treble, having bought Alfinger Haaland earlier. Imagine if it was. That would have been better, wouldn't it? That would have made our life better. Having bought his son the year before, they went out and spent about 200 million quid on a new centre-half, Guardiola, as a squad player. Mateus Nunes, who we'd looked at as like a potential first team player in the past and passed up on, they bought him as a squad player. Doku and Kovacic. They added those 4 lads to their squad, having won the treble. And we were thinking, because we all love to get carried away, me and you included. We were thinking we were going to win the league. We were going to win a quadruple a few weeks ago. When you put it back in context, the fact that we can still get 84 points and we could finish, I think we could finish within 7 of City now, 5, 6, 7, something like that, if they win all theirs and we win ours. Think of that gap we've closed in one season, having only bought the lads we bought and only spent the money we spent. It's still another, and by the way, picking up a trophy along the way, and the title challenge up to the last few weeks of the season.
I'm being robbed at Tottenham Hotspur, no, you let it go. Being robbed against Arsenal. We will do. Sorry, but it's going to be added now, though. We'll do
There's
too many of them now. I'm not saying there's a conspiracy. They're just shit.
Yeah, I want to do the full ref thing. But also in the context of all this, and look, one of the reasons I wanted to mention City was I don't want to do revisionism. I don't want to go back to the beginning of the season and be like, well, we were saying, do we need an extra player? Because all this stuff happens in the season, it goes the way it goes. But the reality is, City wanted an extra centre-back and went out and spent 70 million quid on Guardiola. At the end of the season, he scored 3 goals for them. This is the difference between buying big money players at the crunch time of the season and buying lads or bringing lads through from the academy who have done a great job. I don't want to put them down at all. Done a great job. But there is a difference between a £16 million Endo and a £100 million Declan Rice, and between an academy player Quansah and a £70 million Guardiola. That makes a difference in a title running, and no one can deny that. And the last bit on this little rant before we go back to the other stuff. Someone shared the highest net spends in English clubs since Klopp arrived at Liverpool, and we are 8th on the list. We're behind West Ham. So it's United who've spent over £1 billion, then Chelsea have spent over £1 billion, Man City 952 million, Arsenal 834 million, Newcastle 586 million, Spurs 565 million, West Ham 444 million, and Liverpool 420 million. And look, I know there's the big net spend debate, and Evertonians love it and go, "Oh, you with your fucking net spend," going back to Rafa Benitez, because it matters who you sell for that as well, obviously. And we've made good money selling some players, but it does paint a picture, doesn't it? Like how much he's competed.
Yeah, 100%, and he has done. You know that I wrote something yesterday about him for someone, and you know that what I was saying there was, you know, you've got to sort of take a step back, look at it all, look at where we were, look at where we've been, and look at where we are. Like we were saying literally the other week, we're in a good place. You know, Slot as we now expect to be the next manager. You know what he's inheriting is a good start. Do you know what I mean? It's not terrible. You know, we don't need to drop off a cliff here. We're in the Champions League unless, you know, there's a football miracle. We lose all our games, Spurs win all theirs, and they score about 1 million goals. So essentially, we are in the Champions League, and that's the place we need to be. That's where the revenues are. That's where players want to come, etc., etc., etc. So, you know, we don't need to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. I get that people understandably are upset, angry about the way it's gone. I understand. So I even understand some of the extreme opinions when it's like, you know, we were in such a great position. Yeah, we were. You know, we come so far in the Europa. We come so far in the FA Cup. We were in a great position in the league. We're in a position in the league where it was in our hands. But nevertheless, didn't most people think it was just a chance rather than an inevitability? Because I think deep down most Reds did. You know, like I've seen quite a few pieces and read quite a few things, you know, in the aftermath of the last 2 games where it sort of said, and it's tough to agree with it, but I think it's probably right, where it said, if Liverpool finish third, well, that's probably about right. Because they're probably the third best team in the league. Yeah. And when I started to think about it from that perspective, I was thinking, yeah, you can't really say we're better than City, can you? You can't. And Arsenal being great. You know, I actually think now, we were saying before, haven't we, on this show, that we maybe didn't give them enough credit earlier in the season. That was probably right. But the run they've been on, the amount of goals they've scored, and the fact that they just keep themselves in the position, and I know it's not in their hands, but like I've seen people saying you'd rather City win because it doesn't matter, because, you know, they've got all them charges against their name and we know what they do, and we know that there's a collective shrug now when they win things. But the football purist almost in me is like, I kind of want it to be Arsenal. Like, it might not be to our advantage for it to be, because then they've broke their duck, and, you know, they're more attractive and they'll get money and all of that. But sometimes just bring it back to, like, you know, you're the lad with the panini stickers or whatever, just watching footy, and you haven't got all these years of being hammered into the ground by modern football. They've played good footy. They're a good story. And you know what, if they win it, I think you will get all the pieces in the paper, and, you know, like the stuff on the telly and whatever. People will be interested because it's a new story. Do you know what I mean? And it will just be boring if it's City. So I'm a bit torn on that one. I mean, whatever happens, and it's not really our business now. We can't really influence it. We've just got to, as I said before, win our games, go out on a bit of a high, say ta-ra to Klopp, give him the farewell he deserves and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of, it should be out of them too. Big part of me said, well, how do you feel about it?
I'm torn on the same issue. I keep flipping between the two, and it does make a difference to me now that anyone who's listened to me over the years talk about football, you know, like I've always got like a reference point with someone I know who's a fan of another club. Like I've often banged on about a mate who's a City fan and mate who's a Sheffield United fan, and now I've got brother-in-law who's an Arsenal fan, so that adds a different dynamic to it, because, you know, partly want him to experience winning it. And me and him were talking about it the other day, because he grew up round here but was an Arsenal fan because his dad was an Arsenal fan, so he said he's always hated Liverpool, but he had the similar thing of like that part of, well, if City win, who gives a shit? But I think there's a bit of me that does give a shit that it would be 4 on the run for them, which no one's ever done, and it would be a double-double, which everyone forgot about because they were going for the double treble.
But it'll be 4 in the row that'll get stripped off when...
Yeah, and look, mate, I think
when what we expect to happen eventually happens.
The other thing about if Arsenal win it, I was just getting up the league table to make sure I'm right about this, because it was funny. I watched back one of our clips from a few weeks ago when I was saying, you know, all 3 teams here could end up getting over 90 points, which is ridiculous. And people in the comments on TikTok were obviously slaughtering me, saying they won't. And I was like, you're right, you were right. They haven't. The highest Arsenal can finish on is 89. And there'd be a part of me that if they won the league on 89 would be a bit pissed off, because there's that bit of me as well. It's like, this is on the positive point, Joe, for Slot coming in. When you look at it, I saw someone on Twitter the other day saying, if you stop and think about it, since we won the league on 99 points, think how good that side was. Since then, and this is a wider conversation, obviously, maybe for another day, but we've only won 1 FA Cup and 2 League Cups since then. We got, after getting, we got 97 points and finished second, then we got 99 points and finished first. Well, then we crashed and got 69 and finished third. Then we pulled ourselves back up and got 92 and finished second. And then we crashed again and went down to 67. And that's another point about this season, actually. We could finish on 84 points. And 84 points would actually be Klopp's 4th best season, which is mad. That doesn't seem like that would be the case, but that shows how good a job he's done rebuilding a second side. But there would be a part of me that if Arsenal won the league on 89 points would be pissed off. Because I'd be like, after all those seasons, do you mean after?
But look, even now, like I say, I'm a Liverpool fan. I go to the game. I'm gutted. I've found it hard to take. I've sort of been swerving a lot of media, and I only sort of like made a bit of a cursory glance at match of the day and things like that, because I was just like, oh, I need to do something else. I need to go for a big long walk on the beach or whatever. Did do that. But cold light today, stats in front of me, best team in the league at home, Liverpool. Away form, the away table, if you like, Liverpool 3rd best team in the league away from home. So again, like, given what's gone on this season with injuries, given what's gone on with all the other circumstances, the madness with referees, etc., given that all the people we've blooded are now blooded, and you would expect that experience will serve them well, and given that there's a new manager coming in, there's a sporting director, there's Michael Edwards, they'll have plans, they'll buy players, all of that kind of stuff, like, I feel like you can get excited about what's next, because we're not starting from like a low place, are we? We're starting from probably 3rd. And we're starting from a situation where, like I've just said, we've got the best, we've been imperious at Anfield under Jurgen Klopp. And there was time where I can remember saying we need to rebuild Anfield back to what it was.
Yeah.
Well, Anfield's there. Anfield's sorted. This group of players has maintained that record. And okay, away from home, they could have done with winning a bit more. The record away from home is played 18, won 9, drawn 6, lost 3. But it's not terrible. It's 33 points. The best team in the league away from home is Arsenal with 39. So, we're not that far off, are we? And like, it's annoying that we've come that far, and then we're blowing it in such a shit way, for want of a better phrase. Like, that's what was so annoying about Goodison, is exactly what Everton do. You know what they're about. They go for set pieces. They overload the far post. And like, I was in the upper tier, and you could see what they were doing, and you could see the set pieces, and we didn't adjust to it, and we just didn't seem to have like nous. We didn't seem to have intelligence. We weren't switched on, and I just think what you've already said before me, that mentally, I think everything's just taking its toll, and that's the only explanation I can come up with it, really. I mean, there's the explanation of physically it's taken its toll as well, but I think mentally is probably as big as anything, really, in that it's just been like a domino effect since that Man United game, hasn't it? They've never truly got it back. I mean, there's wins in there since that game, but they weren't convincing, really, were they?
But
you said to me in a conversation yesterday, when did we last play well? And I was like,
and that's been the thing for me, like, that's the problem, like that. And when I've been looking at Arsenal recently, and going back to something I said a few weeks ago about we need to tighten up the defence. Arsenal have kept like 6 clean sheets away from home on the run until the Spurs game. You're like, that helps you, lads, doesn't it? This emotional expenditure of like going behind and coming back all the time. Yeah, it's rocky fairy tale stuff, but you can't sustain that all season, and that's what we've seen. You said before, when we started the show, looking at the results in April, and you referenced the Man United Cup game, which I agree with. But I actually think what had the bigger psychological impact wasn't the Cup game, it was the league game. Because having been knocked out in the Cup, I remember even on this show, me and you talking, fans talking, we were like, So we beat Sheffield United at home, and then we went to Old Trafford. And I remember us all saying, well, we'll batter them because we'll have learned our lessons. When we're on top, we need to put them to bed. And I think that's the first time in a long time watching us on the telly. I'm shouting at the telly because I couldn't believe my eyes that they were repeating the exact same mistakes they'd made in the cup game. And I think when we drew that game, that's the one where it was like you've had a good punch to the guts in the cup game, but you could recover from it. And that one, when they've walked away from that, I think they've all been looking at each other thinking, what the fuck's going on? And it was after that we got battered by Atalanta. So then you had the draw at Old Trafford, you got battered by Atalanta, and then we got beat at home by Palace. And it's at that point I just think we're just beat up. And you start looking at us, and there's different times through that run then. I've messaged you a few times about this. Klopp's body language on the touchline, the players' body language, the look in their eyes. The belief just seemed to drain from everyone. It was as if all of a sudden the story changed from, and this isn't just with the players, by the way, like the Crystal Palace crowd, the Anfield crowd in the Crystal Palace game felt like this to me.
Yeah.
Like it was as if
we were feeling it.
Yeah, it was as if everyone, the story in their head had changed from this is going to be a dead romantic ending to this is going to be shit, and the belief just drained away. And I think the overall thing for me comes back to the thing, we said referenced before about the end of his time at Dortmund and the last side we had here, the great Liverpool side that he built. I think they have just run out of gas. I do think as sad as it is.
And ideas and ability, whatever you might be, I don't think it's there. Like, I don't think it's there to win the league with what we've currently got. It's too big of an ask.
It would have been a miracle to win the league with this squad.
Absolutely. And it's what he's managed to squeeze out of all the like the League Cup win is incredible.
Yeah.
It might only be the League Cup and all that. But look, I took my son to that, and I can tell you now, he's 15 years old. He's still buzzing about that now. He's like, that was unbelievable, Dad, how we won that. And I'm like, I know, mate. And he's like, I'm so glad I went to it. And like, he's not going to me, only the League Cup.
Yeah.
He's going, that was unbelievable. It was like fairy tale stuff. Like, and it's like, I just feel like there's like revisionism from every corner at the minute. And like, it's grim. I just think like, I know some people are just more negative than others and all the rest of it. But like, is the captaincy right? Well, did the captain behave like a captain in that League Cup final? Yeah. So why do we have to suddenly create this thing now that he's a shit captain? Like,
I've seen people saying we need to sell like 10, 11 players and you're like, we are getting carried away. And look at this, a point I wanted to make.
It's not realistic, is it? Who does that?
Well, it's not going to happen. Well, I tell you who does it. Chelsea. And what happened to them?
Yeah,
they're a fucking basket case.
That's a good example, isn't it?
And look, I've put in here like the stat. I think why a lot of people like watching this is we don't get too heavily into the stats and all that. We reference them and all that, but we just like to chat about footy. And stats don't tell the whole story, but sometimes they paint a picture.
Let me just do my usual where I've swatted a comment that's annoying me a little bit. The smart ass comment you've put in about Dortmund, mate, just actually look at that season. They might have won a cup and ended up in a Champions League play. They lost shitloads and sunk right down the league. And like it really went, like the wheels came off. And they might have recovered in the end, mate. But like, what have we had as a season? Basically the other way around. Do you know what I mean? So, no, mate, the point stands. Well, like that's why there's that's why there's all the stuff written about the players ran out of steam, the manager looked out as like he'd had he started being like cranky, didn't he, with journalists and all the rest of it. It's all there, mate, in black and white.
Well, that's I don't get comments that season. Like that. It's like those stories come from players who can tell the truth about it now and say, yeah, we were goosed. But look on this point, and this is one of the things I'll always come back to, with not just with football, but with elite level sport. Like, stats don't tell the whole story, but Premier League clean sheets in 2024, Arsenal have got 8, Man City have got 5, Liverpool have got 1. That's a problem. But then even more than that, in our last, and again, XG, people can debate it, but it's indicative of something. In our last 5 Premier League matches, we've got an XG of 12.78. And our opponents have got an XG of 5.8.
Yeah, it's horrible, that, isn't it?
So we should have won those games on aggregate. In basic terms, we should have won those games 12-5 on aggregate, and we lost 8-7.
And there's so many little bits as well, isn't there? The Everton game obviously doesn't go our way. It's a grim day and all the rest of it, grim night. But Diaz was like a constant thorn in their side, a constant threat. And okay, I think if you level at him that, there's not enough end product for the fact that he can skin everyone forever. I'd agree with you. It's the post, isn't he? And it would have been a great goal. It's so close to being a great goal. Harvey at the weekend.
Well, I haven't put that in here. Did you see the stat about hitting the woodwork?
I'm starting to ignore the stats because I find them all depressing.
I know, but we've hit the woodwork something like 5 times more than the next highest.
That doesn't surprise me.
Not in the league, in the top 5 leagues in Europe. We've hit the woodwork way more than anybody else. And look, same point comes, because I was about to say, on the XG thing, this comes from the XG philosophy on Twitter. Spurs Arsenal at the weekend. Spurs XG 2.73, Arsenal's 1.28, Arsenal 1.32.
Clinical.
They scored. I think they scored 3 goals in the first half. They had one of those games where they scored 3 goals and only had 2 shots on target. And you're like, when you have a game like that,
this is it. Like when you're trying to sort of just remember everything that's gone on. You know what I mean? He's just put in caps, one of our players' parents got kidnapped. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it's do you know what I mean?
Not just one of our players, though. One of our most important players, who still, by the way, has got one of our most the most numbers on the pitch, minutes on the pitch this season, which shows how much he's been playing when we've had him. Yeah. And all of this factors in. Did you see any? I know you've said you ducked match of the day. Did you see any of the City Nottingham Forest highlights?
I seen them missing sitters. Yeah.
And that's my point. Again. Forest's XG 2.07, well, Man City 0.89. Yeah. City won 2-0. And literally Chris Wood had 2 chances from 4 yards out or 5-6 yards out right in front of the goal and missed them both, mishit them both. And then at the other end of the pitch, and this is the difference, and we will come on to, maybe not in this, but maybe on the Patreon, we're going to have another chat about Salah and Nunes. Haaland's chance just showed it. I know it's caused a big stink, a big stir, that Roy Keane called him a League 2 player for his build-up play.
He's upgraded it.
He's upgraded into Championship. Yeah, I love that. But his finish showed why he is who he is. He literally just took the ball off De Bruyne, couple of touches, and then just slotted it in the bottom corner. And when you compare that to Nunes' chance against Everton, it's just... I mean, I don't know. I do want to have a little chat about the derby and the West Ham game, because I do feel like we can criticise the players, and there is this big thing. I sent you a video I saw on Twitter of our chances, loads of our chances we've missed, and it is funny because you see all these stats about the big chances we've missed, and it's not just Nunes, but when you see a stat and then you see the video of the chances. Fucking hell, mate. Did you watch it? And you're watching it back, and someone let me find the tweet someone said on the bigger picture, back on the Klopp thing from before. David Thomas on Twitter said, you'd only need to change 4 results in Klopp's 487 games to turn 1 Premier League title and 1 Champions League into 3 Premier League titles and 3 Champions League wins. So anyone downplaying this man's achievements are ignorant of the razor-thin margins involved at elite level sport.
It's absolutely spot on.
And this is my big thing. And look, this works both way rounds as well. When you win, you're winning by razor-thin margins as well. So it does work both ways. But I was thinking I was going to do a video for our Twitter actually, and just didn't get round to it. The video I watched of the big chance we missed must have had 30 big chances. But I was thinking, but you only need to take 3 of them and it would have changed the season. So everyone, we'll talk about the refs in a bit. We keep teasing you saying we're going to come on to it, but there was the Ødegaard handball against Arsenal, but we said at the time we scored just after that anyway, so score-wise that didn't make a huge difference. But what everyone forgets Trent in that game was Trent hitting the bar. Yeah. We had another one of those breaks where it was 5-on-2. If Trent scores that goal, Arsenal have 1 point fewer and we have 2 points more. City at home, Diaz had 2 didn't he? Where he ran through on goal. Pick either one of them. You score either of them. City have got 1 point fewer, and we've got 2 more.
Doku doing fucking Karate Kid.
Yeah, well, let's save that for our greatest hits on the refs. And then you've got, I mean, take your pick out of all of the rest. The Núñez one against Everton, we've both defended him. I think we've both been rational, like, in our criticism of him.
Yeah.
For me, does it get to a point where, like, something's unforgivable with a top level striker? I still can't believe, I know me and you exchanged some messages on this, I still can't believe, and I won't have it actually, that it's not possible to coach him to be calmer in front of goal. Maybe you can't turn him into Haaland, but I've seen in my lifetime Luis Suarez go from being an irrational finisher to a great finisher. I've seen Thierry Henry go from being a wide, like a winger, to being an unbelievable forward. And if you listen to Sturridge and you listen to Rooney on Sky and all the strikers talking about things, Michael Owen, they all say the same thing. Just develop a fucking finish.
I know.
Just develop something that, when you're talking about that brain thing, the thinking fast or slow, develop something that when you're in front of goal, your brain goes, slot it.
Yeah, here we
just
are,
slot it. Not, which is what we see all the time with him, just put your laces through it.
I know.
And you're like, fucking hell, mate, just put your laces through it. It's not
so
a good
annoying,
enough
isn't
technique.
it? Because, that, like, the one we're talking about against Everton, like, he's done really well. His touch is good to and then it's there.
His movement, his touch.
Yeah, his movement, the touch. There's the goal right in front of you. It's that blade with the little arms looking at you. All you've got to do is put it in that far corner, and what you do, boom it at him. And it's like, and I remember, I think it was a Neil Jones piece at the time. He did work on his finishing, didn't he? It was reported that he did work on his finishing. Yeah. It was when he got dropped. It was when he wasn't in the side. Going way back to near the start of the season.
Yeah.
And Newcastle away, another one of my son's greatest hits. Another game he still talks about because that was absolutely unbelievable. Darwin Núñez comes off the bench and scores 2 of the coolest finishes you will see from a front man. Where's that Darwin Núñez? Because that was when he'd worked on his finishing and he looked like he'd found finishes. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and
he wasn't tonking it.
They were well more difficult finishes than the one against Everton or the one against Atalanta.
But it just shows you that I think, Klopp, by his own admission, he said it in press conference one. He said it when he was at Dortmund. He's an emotional manager. Trent, in that interview that he did with Gary Neville, was talking about how he fires you up. He makes, a big part of his management is believing you'll never be beaten. There's still time to go and all that. The manager himself is not acting to his own mantra, is he? Do you know what I mean? So when I'm at Goodison Park, I'm still thinking all the way through the game, these aren't that good. All they're doing is playing to the strengths. All they're doing is winning the dogfight. All they're doing is pumping long balls in and winning the headers, etc. And we can be better than this. And there was a period, wasn't there? Was it just after our time, I think? Or just before? Whatever. There's a period where we put loads of pressure on them, but we didn't get the goals from it. And I was like, it felt like that was the crucial bit. But the other point, when I'm going to say Klopp almost abandoning his own managerial theories, when he brings on Gomez and Tsimikas, and it's 80 odd minutes, and like, bear in mind, it's the same man who said to us, you can win 1,000,001 games in, the last 10 minutes or whatever it was. We said he had that go at us all, didn't he, against Crystal Palace way back at the start of his managerial reign. Well, what? Yes, mate. So why are you bringing on defenders, essentially waving the white flag, saying this is done today? Tsimikas and Gomez, with every respect to the pair of them, are not going to win us football matches. And then there was the explanation about Dan's, about, it's just physical opponents, so I didn't want to throw him in. What's the worst that can happen? Yeah. Because to me, Dan's looks like a fella that A, can probably handle himself and he'd probably be all right, but B, doesn't care. He's got that exuberance of youth where he's not bothered, and he's a Scouser. So there's that aspect to throw in as well. And look, anything could have happened. It might have got worse. He might have got sent off. But you know what? It was worth a throw of the dice. And instead, he made it. The decision to bring them two on is one of the most baffling decisions I've ever seen from him. I don't know what he was doing. And, There's that clip, one of my favourite clips of Klopp actually, isn't it? You know, in the press conference when he says, "Why is everyone allowed to say it and I'm not?" And like, you know, I think it's Matt McCann goes, "What?" And he goes, "Brain fuck." And they're like, no, brain fog. And he's like,
that's brilliant. That clip, yeah.
He looks at times lately like he's in a brain fog.
Yeah.
And you know, when you heard him talking about his son visiting, did you see that?
Yeah.
He said like his son was visiting, he went for a drink in Formby and all that kind of stuff. But he was saying, and I still hadn't let it go about Everton, and I'm apologising to people. And again, I'm just thinking, that's not you, mate. That's not you, Klopp. This is a different Klopp. This is a Klopp who's letting it get to him. And I'm thinking, has he reached a place here himself, like we are, where we're really sad that it's not going the way we all wanted it to? I think he's in the same place. And he's found it very hard as the cards have started to collapse to lift them and find the right words, I reckon. You know, that's just my theory. But I think, you know, some of the magic there, the team as well are looking at him going, well, you're going now. And that's not to knock him for announcing it and all that. I don't think he had any choice. I think it was the right decision. I think that's hindsight to start to say he shouldn't have announced it and we would have been sound and we would have won the league if it was, you know, bollocks. Like, how can you keep something like that secret for this long? You can't. And also, it almost feels like he couldn't be true to himself if he'd just been holding that in, going, I know I'm going at the end of the season, but I'm just not going to say anything.
Yeah. The
club needed to plan. The club needed to get another manager in. You know, they've gone around the houses a little bit to get one. But it looks like we now have got one.
I'm going to talk about that later as well.
Hey, catchphrase.
but I think all of those are really important points. I've seen people comparing it to when Ferguson announced he was leaving the first time and their season suffered because of it. So then when he changed his mind and then the second time he went, he announced it at the end of the season. But we're in a very different era now to we were back then, aren't we? Like, all it would have taken was for one person inside the club to leak it. Or not only that, when our executives, who people know what they look like, are going to speak to somebody else in another, people forget this. Like, Liverpool fans are lunatics. We're like investigative journalists.
Remember it came out about it was Benitez reign, wasn't it? And it came out about Hicks and Gillette meeting Klinsmann.
Klinsmann,
yeah.
Well, and I remember there was one where they were walking down the street talking to Martinez, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a photo of that, and then there was the one where they were trying to raise. Someone spotted Hicks outside one of the big banks in New York. So the bank got bombarded with like Liverpool fans saying, "Don't lend to these knobheads." And he said at the time, didn't he, that they were like online terrorists or something. You can't. I don't think you can. And I know plenty of people are doing it and revising what was good and what was the best. I don't think there were many people, if anybody, I heard at the time saying it wasn't the right decision, because we know what the world's like now. You couldn't have kept it quiet. And I think the point you've just made there is really important. I don't think Klopp could have gone through a whole season, or pretty much a whole season, lying to his squad. That's not the way he is. I think that would have affected him. But having said all that, I said to you in the week, I do think, let two things, right? So one, let's give him credit first, because none of us wanted him to leave. No. It's him. And I always say this about, I know this might sound like a mad analogy. It's a bit like, all the greatest TV shows you've ever seen. The greatest TV shows you've ever seen were written by geniuses who knew when it was enough. Like, we wanted more, but they were like, no, that's it.
Yeah, you're not
one series of Faulty Towers is all you're getting. Like, and you can just live with that. 2.5 seasons or whatever it was of The British Office. That's all you're getting. Yeah. Like, no more. And even like I was watching Ted Lasso, and Jason Sudeikis constantly being asked, are you going to do it again? And you could see him doing the whole, we have to be very careful about this decision, because right now it's a perfect story and I don't want to mess that up by coming back. So we've got to give Klopp.
And then the flip side, how the fuck is Mrs. Brown's Boys ever on the telly in the first place?
Exactly.
There's definitely like naked pictures of a commissioner going around there or something.
And we'll probably be on forever and a day. Yeah, you could have. If I'd have said that, you'd have been like that. Edit that. But this is the point. So, right, firstly, we've got to give him credit for saying, look, I know I haven't got the energy for this. But I think what we're starting to see here is, he did say when he announced he had the energy to get to the end of the season. And I think that was probably true if we'd have kept the momentum going. But it's a bit like that thing that, once you're out of steam and then you've got to try and pick yourself up again. We all know what that feels like in real life. It's almost impossible to do. And I sort of see that in him. I think I mentioned to you in messages, and I've mentioned to a couple of people, in a couple of games, his body language has not been good on the touchline. And I know this is, but I know you can analyze it, and this could be, pseudo psychology and all the rest of it. I get that. But there are times when he's sitting on like a drinks box on the side of the pitch, looking beaten. With, as you say, against Atalanta away, it was like with 25 minutes left. And when you're such an influential manager, that is going to affect your players. So when your players are looking at you and everyone's going, the players aren't trying as hard, you're like, yeah, but look, they're looking at the manager who leads them, who is usually the one driving them on, as you say, kicking off on the fans for leaving early. And I think that's been a big part of it. I do think as well, though, going back to the Everton game, I think he got the team wrong as well. Because once Jota's out, which was another psychological blow to everyone, by the way, which we haven't talked about. But then you find out Gakpo's not going to be there because his wife's giving birth. Fine, okay, you've got to roll with the punches. But okay, now we know we've been running out of steam at the end of games, so you need to keep some cards to play as subs. And something that's amazed me over the past week is, for weeks, we were doing this thing where Gomez would always play left back or right back, and it would allow whoever to have a rest. And all of a sudden, in a week when Trent's come back from injury, we just stopped doing it. And I just think we'd have been much better. And again, hindsight's a great thing, but I just think we'd have been much better going into that derby with Endo in the team, with Gomez in the team, not just so that you've got a couple of better, two of your big hitters to bring on as subs. That would allow you to bring on a McAllister or bring on a Robertson or a Trent later on. But the other thing is as well, I think we went into that game forgetting that it's the Merseyside derby. You've got to win the war first. You've always had to win the war first. It's no different, especially in this game.
Yeah, it's felt like as well a lot of, like a bit of a like a dirty snowball rolling down a hill. It starts off white and it gets darker and darker, and eventually it's full of dog shit and you don't want to go anywhere near it. It's felt a bit like that to me, that more and more problems have started to happen as we've gone on this little bad run. So, someone's put there, Canate doing a Titus Bramble impression lately hasn't helped.
Hasn't helped, yeah.
It certainly hasn't. And you look at even like McAllister, like he didn't play well against Everton, did he? No. He's been brilliant recently, hasn't he? He's been like the man who's sort of been leading the midfield. He's given the ball away. He's given cheap free kicks away. He's not at it, and you're just like, it's like too many things at once. And what do you want me to do about it? And like it's felt a bit like Klopp hasn't had the answers, and maybe has made some bad judgment calls at the time. And look, what you said about him there as well. That's where he was last season as well. You know what I mean? So when we lost 14 games last season, let's remember that. And he looked then a beaten man. He looked like he'd had enough. And I think lots of people have said, there was a time last season where you wouldn't have been surprised if he'd have said, I'm going. And I think he's looked at it. And I think you're right about, the sort of the story stuff as well. Like maybe looked at it and said, well, I know I've had enough. My body's telling me I've had enough. My mental state is. But now is not the right time to go, because it wouldn't be the right time for Liverpool for me to go now. And so I think he's gone like, I'll do the rebuild, I'll get the players in, I'll see where we go. And I wouldn't mind betting if you could have spoke to him honestly at that time, like at the start of the season after Preston North End and when we played them in a pre-season friendly, I don't think for a second he would have been talking about title bids, quadruple, etc, etc, etc. That's just sort of happened. That's when the snowball was white.
Yeah. Well, he's been a victim of his own success, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And we've seen this over the years. I remember having this chat about Benitez years ago. Like, people holding him against his own bar that he'd set. And you're like, yeah, but hang on, fellas, he set the bar at a ridiculously high level by overachieving. And I think that's what's happened to Klopp this year, isn't it? Like,
but you know,
the rebuild's gone so well early on that we've ended up in a quadruple bid that we could have probably done without.
And then, you know, we know now as well, don't we, obviously, that, you know, Slot's coming in, was, you know, slowly but surely, well, whether you like it or not, you've got to get on board now, haven't you? So we're all, I'm sure we're all doing what I'm doing, you know, slowly but surely, reading the pieces, watching the videos, finding bits that I can get on board with, etc., etc. But, you know, think about, you know, for him, I mean, maybe this is a show at a future point when we just concentrate on this, because we're going all over the show, aren't we, with this, because we've both got loads to say. But, you know, we just talked about McAllister. We're all made up with the signing of McAllister. We all know what he can do. And imagine a re-energised McAllister, a McAllister starting from scratch with a year at Liverpool under his belt. Fantastic player. We know what he can do now. We know what he's capable of. We know how good he is. I'm sure Slot's looking forward to working with him. Szoboszlai's gone massively off the boil for me in recent times. But let's not, you know, the baby bathwater thing again. Yeah. Let's think about earlier in the season where we're like, saying about we've literally bought one of the best midfielders in the world here. He's amazing. He's got this shot on him. He's got this engine on him. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's doing the other. Not looked like that player recently, but that was still him then.
Yeah.
And so that version of him can come back, can't it?
Of course.
Etc.
And it's his first season as well.
Yeah, and I just think, you know, like you say, all these, like, you know, people lashing out lists of, you know, 10 players we need or whatever. Well, one, it's not going to happen. Two, it's not realistic. And three, you know, I just think it's too much. It's over the top. Like, I'm sure there will be some change this summer. Inevitably there will be, because of the change in the, you know, in manager, in sporting director, etc., like I said before. But some of it's just so knee-jerk. And I just think, you know, we all need to take a little step back here and think about where we were, where we are now, all this confusion, nothing to say for me.
Nice.
But, you know, like, we'll be all right. It's just hard to take in the now, isn't it? It's horrible to take in the now.
Yeah.
And you know, when you've dreamt at night of all these, like, boss endings, and when you've spoke to your mates in the pub and you're like, imagine this and imagine that, and doubling this and doubling that, and that cup, this cup, and blah blah blah. And then, look, it's hard to take. It's hard to take. But equally, the legacy of Klopp, for me anyway, is not tainted, and it's still a good one. And he's a fella that's right up there with all the legends for me. That's as far as I'm concerned.
100%. And look, this is where we're left now. We've gotten, as Robbo said, we've obviously had a lot to talk about. So there's loads for us still to talk about. We're out of time. We are going to get stuck into Anthony Taylor, referees in general.
Wow.
We're going to have a chat about Arne Slot. And why there's actually a lot of optimism for the future, I think. Especially, I want to end on one point, right, about the derby, because there was a video going around about Trent Alexander-Arnold and his defending again. And I was reading last night, and we'll talk about this in the Patreon show, that Arne Slot plays 4-2-3-1. If there's ever a time to put Trent into that 5-man midfield, wherever you fucking want to put him, and stop asking him to defend. There is a reason. Honestly, it's another one of the things I'm screaming at the telly now. There's a reason no one ever kicks off about Kevin De Bruyne's defending or Martin Ødegaard's defending. It's because they don't ask them to defend, because they're unbelievable footballers who they just let be unbelievable footballers, like we did with Benitez and Gerrard at one point. Just like, take off the shackles, stop asking him to defend back post corners and crosses and then slagging him off because he can't do it. Go and let him play in midfield. I'm going to write to the new manager and get onto that.
Dear Mr. Slot.
Yeah. It'd be like me dad in the olden days. Dear Mr. Parry, I don't like these new boards around the ground. Fuck off. Anyway, right. We're going to go over to Patreon. If you're watching us live, we'll be over there in 5-10 minutes. Come and watch. If you're listening to this back and you're not a member, a subscriber, come and join us. You are missing out. You've heard what we're going to be chatting about. There's still loads to get into this week. There's a link below this show, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast. You can come and join in for free. You can get a 7-day free trial. You can listen to, I think there's well over 50 back episodes now. You can work your way through as well to check whether you like it before you actually subscribe. And if you want to get stuck in after that, it's for as little as £1 a week. It is the best money you'll spend to brighten up your week. And we've still got fucking Salah and Klopp to talk about as
There's
well, haven't we?
loads to talk about, isn't
So-
there? There's someone asking in the comments if it does go out live. It does. So, you know, if you're on Patreon already, there'll be a link there, and then you can just jump on essentially the same way as you've just watched this. Equally, you know, it's available as a podcast, it's available as a video you can watch whenever you want to watch it, and as Cope said as well, you get access to all the back catalogue as well, and there are various other ways, including the Buy Me a Coffee, where you can throw in to help us with the cost of running all this. It's not free, and I think what I'm going to try a different thing here. I think we say we've got a website, haven't we? We never ever say we've got a website.
Yeah.
It's only a basic one. It's only like a functional website, but all the stuff you'd want to know and all the links you'll need are on there. Buy Me a Coffee link is on the website. The Patreon is on the website, and it's thelatechallengepodcast.com. That's right, isn't it?
And there's a link below the show for that as well. So if you want to go there and see all the information, it's all there, as Robbo says. And look, to wrap up this episode this week, we've got 3 games left with this man now. As Robbo says, regardless of any disappointment or sadness from this year, he is a legend. He brought us the league title we'd waited 3 decades for. He gave us a Champions League. We've won everything there is to win, basically, underneath him. I think now it's time to just get behind him. Let's have 3 big games, 2 games at Anfield, go out on a high, get over 80 points, which will still be a really successful season. The rebuild has started. We can then start looking forward to the future with optimism. 3 games to go. Get behind them. We'll see you next week.